takes you through this process. You just basically click next, allot the size, change the name, and click create. That is literally all, and it will create it and will create one just like this one if you named it so as well. Anyway, not that important at all for you because you'll be running this on a physical machine. This is a process for a physical machine, so dual booting Windows 8.1 and Red Hat on 2 hard drives. Anyway, just go ahead and power on the machine now that you have the CD has been previously inserted before the restart. And there we go. We're immediately prompted for an option to actually install Red Hat Enterprise. We can just go ahead and select it. That's the first option, not the default one though, because it first offers a testing of a media. You can run the test if you want as well, but I don't think that there is that much of a need. The burning software today is relatively good and performs a lot of checkups itself. And the installation process is en route. I'm not gonna go through it in great detail as I have shown it to you already before, but there is one segment which I do wish to show you and which I do wish to explain further, so to say. That would be the partitioning play. That would be the partitioning. There, it is okay to select an automatic partitioning scheme if you are using a single operating system or if you're just installing it onto an empty drive in a virtualized environment, something of a kind. It can be a quick workaround. But what you really want to do is be able to partition it yourself during the installation procedure as well. That can be very, very nice, primarily because you can do whatever you want with it. You can create a scheme that will suit your needs, that will benefit you, that you have deemed appropriate to yourself. Now we have one disk here. It says ATA VBox hard disk. This is where the Windows is located physically. You can see it says only 3000 kilobytes of free space. Right next to it, I have a hard disk. It says almost 100. What? Oh, okay. This is I've already ran an installation on this, but you can see it says here SDA and SDB, and then you have the amount of space that is free on it. Anyway, they're both 100 gigs. I'm sure that on your machine they won't be exactly 100 gigs each one of them. Make sure to first figure out which disk you want to use. So if your Windows is installed on one disk, don't install it there, install it on another disk. I'm not talking about partitions here, I'm talking about two separate hard drives that are within your machine. So just go ahead and select the one that you have chosen. It's not empty, there's something on it, I don't know. Some things that I have previously installed, but doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go ahead and select it. Please be very careful also when doing this, because if you format the drive, you're going to lose information. That you're going to lose data. You're not going to be able to recover it to the fullest of extents. Some of it you will be able to retrieve, but this is not Windows partitioning or something like that. Once you delete things with Linux, it's rather difficult to restore them. Even when I delete something in my terminal with an rm command, it's gone. You just learn to live with it. Anyway, so as I said once again, I can't emphasize this enough. Please select the proper hard disk. If you have problems selecting the proper hard drive, feel free to post it in the discussions. I will be more than happy to help you out with it, but please do not just randomly click on stuff and lose your data. Anyway, to select the drive, all you need to do is click on it, and this mark appears. You see this one, it appears now, and then when I click on it, it disappears. Excellent. So I have selected the second drive, and I want to select I will configure partitioning, that option. Excellent. So now we click on done, and we're going to be thrown here where we're given an opportunity to actually set it up ourselves. So I already have this, and I have already installed Red Hat here previously, so let's just go ahead and delete it all. Since I'm not interested in that now, I wish to do it from scratch so that you can actually see how it is done. So we can have standard partitions, we can have Linux Volume Manager, and some other things as well, but I'm just going to go ahead and select standard partitioning for this. I could actually even select an LVM. And the first partition that we need to configure is root. Your system files will be located there. So I need to desired capacity, let's say 20 gigs. So 20 GB. Add mount point. Excellent, it is created now. I can encrypt it if I wish. Yeah, you can create volume groups as well, because Linux generally, if you have a bunch of disks running under Linux, it just sees them, it can actually see them as a single hard drive. So it treats, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 disks as a single hard drive, no problems. You get that with the default installations of Linux, which is very nice. And if you go back to the root directory in Linux, you will always go back to root, while going back to the root directory on Windows usually means going selecting a disk where it is installed, like C or something like that, and then going there. If this is unclear to you now, I don't want you to worry about it at all. As we move in deeper and deeper, when I give you clear examples of this, you will understand it far better. Anyway, we have created the root partition, and now we need to create a, well, we need to create a boot partition for our Red Hat. So add mount, oh, no, wait. Okay, so it gave it the automatic size of 81 gigabytes because I haven't assigned any size to it, which is a bit funny. So let's just go ahead and delete that, and let's create it again. So boot, let's say, I don't know, you can probably get away with 100 megs, but I'm just gonna say 500 megs to be certain, because I don't know, I guess I'm a cautious guy and I have a lot of space here. Literally, I can have like more space than I will probably ever need on this laptop. Anyway, so boot, root, and now we need home. So home is not, I mean, I don't think you shouldn't get any errors, but you should definitely create a home partition. So 80, and yeah, sure, why not? 80 GB. Pretty sure it's not gonna need a space there. Excellent. Also, you will notice that it doesn't actually obey me to the fullest of extents. It creates a, I've told it 80, and it has created 74.51. Anyway, that's just how it works. I have a bit of available space left here, and I figured, why not? Let's create a swap partition. So swap, actually, you don't need to create it. I think I mentioned this, but it's not a bad idea to have it. You're not gonna get an error message, but you're gonna get a warning message, let's put it so. Anyway, I didn't put in any size parameters, so it just took pretty much all that it could take. There's like 1 megabyte that's gonna be left there. I suppose you can try tweaking and being extremely precise and trying to extract this 1 megabyte, but honestly, why bother? Anyway, you can put in a label here, you can name it any way you like as well. Add, no problems there. Swap will only act as a, usually you put it twice the size of RAM, but I mean on modern systems you don't really need it, primarily because you're not going to run out of RAM generally, but you might, and then your system actually starts using your portion of your hard drive as it would use RAM. It's a really slow procedure. The method is terrible, but hey, it saves the day when all is taken into consideration. Anyway, I'm just gonna click here. I got home, boot, root, swap. I'm gonna say done. And here I get a summary of changes. I get a type and what's gonna be destroyed, what's gonna be created. Just have a look at this and make sure none of these disks are reserved for your Windows. So you can see by SDB, if any of them was SDA, cancel this immediately, but no, they're all SDB. Excellent. So it's the second physical hard drive. They're usually SDB, SDA, I think the next one should be SDC, and so on and so forth, depending on how many you have. So here it says what's going to be created, what's going to be destroyed, what's going to be formatted, etc. So let's just go ahead and click on accept changes. And there you go, custom partitioning selected, all is ready, and the installation may actually begin. So you just click on begin installation. I didn't connect it to the network, but doesn't really matter. We can do all the updates and all the things later on that we actually want, since we will need to install some software and perform the updates as well. Anyway, I shall leave you here, and later on I'll just show you that how the system boots, and what is the difference between how do you actually select to boot into Windows, and how do you actually select to boot into Red Hat. Anyway, until then, I bid you farewell. Welcome back, everybody. Now I'm just going to go ahead and show you that the installation did actually go through as planned. So here's the machine, and now I'm just going to click on reboot. This is going to take a bit of time. I will later on to the machine that we're going to be using as our main operating system, as our Red Hat virtualized environment, I will assign far more resources there. I'll even assign more CPU cores and more RAM so that it works faster. But for the time being, let's just see how this works in a bit of a slower mode. So you might have noticed that even though I've clicked reboot at the end of the Red Hat installation, I am booting now into Windows 8.1. And you might think this to be an error or something of a kind, but I assure you it is not. Everything is working as it should be working. Just type in test. Oh, wait for it. Okay, now Windows is notorious for only seeing the partition of NTFS and exFAT, but let's just give it a shot anyway to see if we can actually see the Red Hat partitions there. So type in disk management. Thank you very much. And then I'll restart the computer and show you that you can indeed boot into Red Hat without any bigger problems, but you need to click a button in time. Okay, so it does see VirtualBox Edition. Okay, so CD disk 1. Okay, yeah, there we go. So disk 0 and disk 1, they are the same size, and it just recognizes these partitions as healthy primary partitions, nothing more. It even sees only 2, which is kind of weird, but okay. Anyway, don't pay that much attention to disk 0, primarily because I've done so many wrong things to it. Up to this point of time, I'm actually even surprised that it's working properly. What I want to show you here is the disk 0 and how is it working. Anyway, if you need to free up some space here in the disk management, while I'm here, I might as well show you. You can actually shrink these volumes. You shouldn't mess around with these that are not Windows partitions. You should only mess around with Windows partitions in Windows. In Linux, you can mess around with pretty much anything. But let's just right click on it, and there's a delete volume, shrink volume. Okay. So you can right click and shrink it. Squaring volume for available shrink space. Anytime now, my good man, anytime. I don't know, I've already shrank it, so to say, something here, and I've partitioned it. And here, excellent. So here it says shrink volume C, size available to shrink in megabytes is actually 0 because it can't get any smaller. And the amount of space to shrink in megabytes you would just put in here. Once that is done, you just read the total size in megabytes after shrink and click shrink. There you go. You can only shrink them from left to right. You cannot shrink them from right to left. So one thing to keep in mind. Anyway, while I was here, I figured I might as well show you that, although not particularly relevant for the course, but a bit of extra information is always in handy. Anyway, I just want to show you that these two partitions are in fact in existence. They are very much there, but Windows doesn't have a clue actual as to what they actually are. So just go ahead and close this. Uh, as you would do with your normal machine, with your physical machine, let's just restart. And now in the restart process, once the Windows goes down, we will switch to Red Hat. So press F12 to select the boot device. You will have something similar on your machine. I don't know, it depends from which machine. I have a Dell, so for Dell it's F12. Uh, there are some other machines like it's F2, somewhere it's actually the delete button. It will be written on the screen as soon as you turn the machine on, that first black screen, so don't worry about it, just have a look at it. And it's gonna say like this is for BIOS, this is for boot options. Select the one, press the key for boot options, and you will get something similar to this. So either you will choose with an up and down arrow and then press enter, or you will have numbers and letters like I have here. So I'm just gonna say boot from hard disk 2. And there you go. I have Red Hat here standing by. I also have Ubuntu down here, but disregard that, please. Uh, been messing around with Windows and been trying to dual boot it in a single partition. Have encountered a lot of problems and didn't want to burden you with it. That's why it actually sees the Ubuntu here. But in any case, disregard that. You will not see that upon when you install it. Rather, instead, you will only see these two options that I am switching in between. Now, select the first one, press enter, and very shortly, Red Hat will actually boot. So you will have dual boot set up, working, no problems. As far as I could find on the forums and in consultation with a lot of people on the net who know a great deal about this, and after reviewing a lot of forum posts, as I've said before, I've actually opted for this method to physically separate Windows and Linux disks, and then you would just select the boot options at machine startup. Safest way to go about things without actually messing up anything. So anyway, accept the license agreement, done, finish configuration, and it's gonna boot any moment now. Come on. No, I would like to register at a later time because I don't want to register twice. I've already registered on a different machine. So it's booting into. This is the first boot, so keep that in mind. Excellent, there we go. Let's just log in. I'm not going to bother installing VirtualBox guest editions here, primarily because there's no need to do so, as we're not actually going to be using this machine. This is only a demonstration of the procedure itself. Oh, come on, anytime now. Just want to show it to you as proof. There you go. So it did indeed boot. You now have the working environment, the graphical user interface here, and it works no problems. Then if you want to switch back to Windows, just reboot the machine, press the key on your keyboard that is appropriate to your computer brand, and select the hard drive from which you wish to boot. So one hard drive will be for Windows and another one will be for Red Hat. Very simple procedure, not too complex, and the only thing that you could possibly mess around with, the only possible thing that you could do that would cause you damage is to actually select the wrong drive during the partitioning part of the installation and delete the Windows partition. So just be careful with that and all should go well. In any case, I would like to cut the tutorial here, and in the next one we will actually start using Red Hat, and I will introduce you to the graphical user interface, not only of Red Hat but GNOME. GNOME is the general graphical user interface for Linux distributions, and then we'll move on slowly into the command line. Anyway, until then, I bid you all farewell. Welcome everybody to this tutorial. Today I'm just gonna go ahead and enter Red Hat. We're not gonna do any more installations or anything of a kind. Today we're jumping in, but we're easing it in slowly. First, I'm gonna show you the graphical user interface, and then we will move on to the terminal. I first want to show you where is what approximately. Before I do all of that, I have made some alterations to the Red Hat virtual machine. I have just assigned it more resources, and you can do the same by clicking on the settings and then going to system, and you have the motherboard, processor, acceleration. And these things you can only change while the machine is down. So once you power the machine up, these changes can no longer take effect. You see, I cannot do anything here. I need to turn the machine off, then make these changes. But in any case, you can see that I have assigned it almost 3 gigs of RAM, and I have assigned it an extra a CPU core. Hopefully, it's going to run a bit faster, and this is going to be a lot smoother experience. You can do the same if you wish, but it's not required. I'm simply doing this to save on time. It is not a pre-requirement of what we are about to do. Anyway, just go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and cancel that, minimize this, and have a look at this desktop. It's if some of you have used Mac, it's fairly similar to it. In the upper bar, you have Sound, Network Manager, Power Management, Date, Username, or you can put in your real name there if you wish. And on the left side over here, you have Applications and Places. So let's click on Places. Okay, capture it. Click on Places. So it can take you home, documents, downloads, music, pictures, videos, pretty much similar as in Windows. You can even browse the network if you want, but doesn't really, we're not going to do that for now. Anyway, once you go into applications, for all of you Windows users out there, this is basically like the start menu. You just click on it, and then you have pretty much everything that you want here. You have the Firefox, we have the browser, which is the default one is Firefox, of course. And we're gonna see, don't open it, my good man. And never mind, let's just, while it's opening it up for the first time, it's probably going to want to do some updates or something of a kind. Speaking of which, we need to do them as well, but first, let me just introduce you. So you have the Firefox browser here, you have the mail client, basically this is for music. For photos, you have LibreOffice, which is the equivalent of Microsoft Office. You can pretty much do anything in LibreOffice that you can do in Microsoft Office as well. So no problems there. And under files, if you're wondering what this is actually a file manager. So let's just go ahead and click on it to see what comes up. Excellent. So this is our file manager, and let's just kill this red gigantic thing in the background. Close them. Most of our time we will be spending at the command line, and we will be mostly dealing with the terminal. But it's good to know, it's good to have a look at these things, and it's good to actually be at least acquainted with the graphical user interface, if nothing else, as it is a prerequisite for using it as a desktop machine, but not a prerequisite as using for servers or anything of a kind, which we eventually want to be able to manage, control, install, and so on and so forth. Anyway, this is your file browser, and you can pretty much go anywhere from here. If I go down to computer, it's going to take me to where some of the system files are. I cannot access where the system files are. I cannot access some of them. You see there's an X here on root. If I double click on it, it says the location could not be displayed. You do not have the necessary permissions to view the contents of root. This is going to be a similar case in all, pretty much the same case actually, in all Linux distributions. You will not be able to access certain parts of it or see it unless you have a root password, or unless you are using a terminal to actually view it, which is very nice, primarily because it disables 99% of viruses out there, pretty much, because they cannot do anything on your system without proper permissions. So anyway, you have the temporary files, I don't know, you have the root files, and here under var you have the log files somewhere. Just have a look at them. I'm generally not used to doing this via graphical user interface, but let's just have a look at it. So log, excellent. So you have these log files that you can later on read. Don't worry about it. We will go through them. We will read them. I will explain to you this in far greater detail. For now, I'm just introducing you to the graphical user interface, nothing else. So just go ahead and close this and go back to applications, and now you have categories of applications. So you have favorites, and these really are pretty much the most used applications in pretty much any Linux distro. Terminal and Firefox and browser, they are the first two, and then comes the rest. So under accessories, I don't know, you have some stupid things that you would use for your daily affairs. Oh, by the way, the equivalent of Notepad in Linux, I would definitely say that it's gedit, except it has like a ton load of more capabilities and options. There we go, definitely. But we're not. We can use it a little bit later on, but we'll mainly be using text editors in the terminal. So you can just go ahead and close that. If we go further down below, okay, so documentation, graphics, nothing there. Oh, come on, internet. Okay, so nothing there. Excellent. Under Office. So here you have like LibreOffice Writer, which is Word, or LibreOffice Impress. I think that's the one for presentations in the Office package. I'm pretty sure that you know to which I am referring to. A PowerPoint. Tip of my tongue, but couldn't really remember. So LibreOffice Impress is basically PowerPoint, if I'm not mistaken. LibreOffice Draw, I think it's an equivalent of Paint or something of a kind, and LibreOffice Calc, which is basically Excel. If we go down further below, we got sound, video. Okay, so Cheese is for your webcam. Just so you know, you can utilize your webcam with Cheese. Baresso is for burning CDs, but we can do all of these. You can burn CDs through via the terminal as well without any sort of problems. If we go down below, Sundry. Okay, so we got SE Linux troubleshooter. Print settings, not that important. Firewall, excellent. So you have the graphical user interface for the firewall, and if we go ahead and click on it, we're going to be prompted with a root password that's gonna, oops, actually no, are you serious? And if I select this, oh no, okay, there will be a root password. That'd be hilarious if there wasn't anything here. I would see if it didn't prompt me for a root password, then I could do pretty much whatever I wanted to the firewall. I would disavow. I would completely disavow Red Hat, completely and utterly. Anyway, here you can, but fortunately, it does require the password. Here you can pretty much do anything with the firewall, and firewall in Linux is open source. Its capabilities are practically infinite. You can do whatever you want with it. There is pretty much nothing that you would need that you cannot do with a Linux firewall. It's amazing. I don't know, I'm sure you can find something and make me eat my own words, but you get the general idea. So you can decide what services do you want to allow, what ports. You got port forwarding, ICMP filter, this is for pinging, and so on and so forth. But look, all of this we will do later via the terminal, as that is the proper way of doing this, because on a server you don't have a graphical user interface and you have to do with what you have. Primarily because graphical user interfaces are resource expensive, and they waste RAM, they waste CPU, and you don't want them. Plus, all the power rests in the terminal, the almighty terminal. Anyway, so go back to applications. Sundry, we were here. SC Linux is your, how shall I put this? Is your, let's say, antivirus system, or a way of tightening down security eternally. We will deal with that later on, as it will play a major role in this course. If you go down to system tools, you got settings, boxes, and a lot of things here, but I'm going to continue talking about that in the follow-up tutorial, as I am running a bit of short on time here, and there are a few things to which I wish to introduce you here as well, just so you know that you can access them this way as well, and more often than not on a desktop you will need to as well. Until then, I bid you farewell. Welcome back, everybody. Let's just continue. So in the application section, go down to system tools, and here you have like a lot of interesting things. So for example, you have a system monitor, which is a very nice utility, and we'll show you an equivalent of it in the terminal, which people do tend to use quite often. So you have file systems. You can take a look at them. They are listed here. Pretty much. Come Yep, there we go. So run media, random guy, VBox, guest additions. That is the mount point of my guest additions. So that's when it's used 100%, which is which is the way it's supposed to be. But you can also see pretty much everything else. Let's go into processes.